イルカバンバは我らを拒み続け、度重なる失敗にも諦めない私の態度に仲間はやる気をなくしつつある。この筋書きはジェンキンスのものだろう。アトランティスがあらゆる古代文明の元となったという説を彼はにでもなく拒絶した。私は次第に分かってきた。学説に毒されることなく広い心でもって真実を見出せるのはもはやララだけだ。
ごめんよ。ロープは持ってきてないんだ。
大丈夫だから気にしないで。
Welcome to the game commentary for Tomb Raider Anniversary. I'm Jason Botta, the creative director for Tomb Raider Anniversary.
And I'm Toby Gard, the original designer from the first TR1.
Ah, you were the creative director. Give yourself some credit.
I suppose there's only 6 of us, though. I mean, you don't have such grand titles back in those days, but yeah. So in terms of the opening sequences of the original game, the whole thing was leading up to sort of the whole wolf extravaganza that happens, where it was kind of the big reveal of Lara Croft. And obviously some of that wasn't really appropriate anymore. People know who Lara was, so it enabled us to actually be able to show Lara in the intro, in the foyer in Calcutta, and obviously we didn't have to go quite so crazy with the wolf bit with the big towels flying off of her and stuff.
And I think the essence of that whole cinematic and whatnot is the same, sort of an introduction to the main characters of the game and sort of sets up what the entire game is about. So that sort of remains unchanged.
Yep.
Yeah. We sort of tried to follow a lot of the shots from the original game, sort of inspiration for us throughout the entire game, but for this opening scene as well.
So I remember when we were first putting together the design for Tomb Raider, and I found that it was pretty disturbing how many games, how much there was of killing in games. Basically, so many people killing each other mindlessly. You know, you walk up to some chap, and just because they're from a different country, you can gun them down, and that seems to be perfectly reasonable. So in TR1, I felt like, apart from the fact that I didn't think we could do very good humans at the time, like other human enemies, it seemed to me like a much nicer thing to do to have the enemies be animals, sort of, you know, vicious animals like bats and rats and things.
Which is ironic because I think now most people would consider killing animals way crueler than killing people.
It is, yeah. I mean, pretty much, yeah, the worst thing about it is, of course, they're all endangered species. None of this occurred to me at the time. To be honest with you, I just thought, great, we're not killing humans hardly at all. What a great selling point.
When we redid it, we went and we looked at the animals in TR1, and they weren't very mean looking, which made killing them even worse.
I remember my teddy bear model was very cute.
That's right. So we consciously tried to sort of go back and make the animals much more vicious this time around, so you didn't feel so bad about killing them. You can maybe only lose about an hour of sleep instead of all night.
So this was one of the rooms, the Wolf Bridge room, essentially. So early on in the game, in the original Tomb Raider, where it's really just, hey look, there's going to be some big baddies that you're going to fight at some point, but you're able to sort of stand above them and shoot them to death.
Laura's so mean.
Yeah, well, or you could just leave them alone, I suppose. There was nothing really going on in that room in the original TR1, and I was sort of pushing for us to simply, just skip this room on the remake because it wasn't particularly significant. But
yeah, I think visually it was one of the more sort of recognizable areas from TR1, though. So we wanted to keep it, but sort of change it a little bit. So I think it was you that had the idea, right, of breaking the first bridge, so that you fall down into the wolf area.
Yeah. So really, basically, make life difficult for the animal lovers.
Right. You have to kill the wolves now, or they kill you.
The people who didn't kill the wolves, didn't snipe the wolves, basically get the worst deal.
That's right. Plus, it makes the second bridge a little bit more intense now.
That's the big one, yeah.
Yeah.
So this room in the original, it was the goal to try and create a sense of reality to sort of the progression. Like, we had to separate Peru into 4 levels, but when we were designing them, we made them so that they were supposed to fit together. We tried to keep the big door at one end, and then you'd be popping out on the other side into the new level. So they were very continuous, essentially 4 continuous massive levels, but they were split into chunks. One of the improvements is that actually happens now seamlessly, so you carry on through it, and it's a little easier that way to be able to tell what some of the areas were supposed to be. And this particular area was supposed to be essentially a fortified entrance to their city, whereby you've got arrow areas, these sloped walls, and then holes for people to be able to, I don't know what they do, chuck rocks at people, or throw stones, or call them names and stuff, leading to the actual main entrance.
Right, it was sort of the last fortitude of the Vilcabambans against the invading
The evil
Spaniards.
Spanish.
That's right. And originally you came in sort of up top in one of the side areas and sort of worked your way around. But we felt that we really wanted to make the players play the route of the Spanish invaders, since that's essentially what Lara is. She's sort of coming in and going into the home of the natives here. So we wanted to make her run the gauntlet down the center.
So when we were first setting up what kind of levels, what kind of areas we wanted to go for, Incan areas obviously, one of the big civilizations that people are very aware of and so forth. At the time, the actual Vilcabamba itself hadn't been discovered when we made TR1. It was literally was a lost city of legend where the Incans disappeared to, and the Spanish supposedly didn't get to it. I mean, actually, I think that the current theory is the Spaniards did find it, killed everybody in there. But anyway, so by the time it comes to a remake, they've actually found Vilcabamba. It doesn't look anything like this for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah.
Yeah, when we came to sort of remake this village area, one of the things that was interesting was when Toby was like, we're going to remake the village, and everybody was like, there's a village? Where? And I think it was sort of one of the things in TR1, just because of the way they built it, sort of the fact that there was this village where everyone lived was sort of unclear. So we really wanted to sort of reinterpret the idea of there being a village to sort of clarify that to the user that, oh, look, it's actually a town and a civilization, and there are these little huts. So we sort of kept the individual areas that were in there the same, but we completely relaid it all out and made a big wide open space in the middle where you could sort of see everything all at once and get the real sense that there was a civilization that lived in this area. So this was sort of the exit from the town proper into the more depths of the cave that this Incan civilization had built.
It was one of those spots in the original TO1 where I'm a big fan of sort of symmetric level design. Because people generally, when they're building architecture, tend to be fairly symmetric about their efforts, it gives you interesting ability to sort of reuse the idea of a space but change it based on the amount of ruin that's going on inside it. So I like that repeat, and the two-towered gateway into the Lost Valley was one of those spots.
Yeah, and we kept that essentially the same. The only thing I think we changed is we actually have physics in the game now, which they didn't have in TR1, so we made the opening of the door done by Laura's physical interaction with the lock pieces themselves.
So waterfall area, basically entranceway essentially to the Lost Valley, was definitely one of the more memorable bits, I think, that people... It's one of many places in TR1 where the obsession with putting things behind waterfalls was played around with. I like this idea of looking behind waterfalls. Oh, wow, that's pretty bizarre, isn't it? So we actually hid the main temple, where you're actually trying to get to is physically behind the waterfall. So the progression takes you beyond the point where you actually end up, if you see what I mean, into an area with more waterfalls.
That's right. With secrets behind them too, actually.
That's the way. That's exactly the way, right? Yes.
Yeah, it was really interesting when we went back and remade this area. We built it really close to the original scale of the room in Tomb Raider 1 the first time, and everybody that played it thought that the waterfall was too small. And it sort of gets at the point that when we're remaking something that people sort of are remembering playing, that their memory of it's different than the actual game. And so we ended up making the waterfall a lot bigger than it was originally to live up to people's expectations of what it should be. Strangely enough, this is actually one of the areas that I remember the most from Tomb Raider 1, was jumping back and forth across this river.
Well, it was wanting to ramp sort of the... because we didn't have nice save systems. Pretty much, if you died, you're going to be playing at least almost half a level, right, to get back to where you were. So jumping across the waterfall was just a way to sort of be kinder with the reset. So if you fell down the hole, basically it just dropped you into the waterfall. It's kind of like a little white water rafting ride, and sort of spectacular, and that was it. Which I suppose is different now, because it's actually kind of crueler now to do that, because with save points being so liberally scattered around, like having to actually ride all the way down the waterfall back into the original area is more of a punishment than just dropping people onto spikes.
That's right, because we made the traversal up the waterfall so much more intricate now. It is a little bit crueler. Yeah, it adds to the tension.
It does.
And at the end of the cog puzzle, which we obviously changed, but still left a little homage to the end of the passage up above the waterfall ends with a wall with cogs on it, which was the site of the original puzzle.
Yeah.
But we've henceforth moved it into the waterfall area itself. The Lost Valley is probably the most memorable part of Tomb Raider 1. And it's really funny because listening to people talk about it, a lot of people remember it being in a cave. And that was because you had really bad draw distance and it just sort of went out to black fog.
Well, pretty much we only had one fog color, which was black. So we couldn't actually, even though we wanted to have sort of an open top, we couldn't really do it. I think actually it's black top, so it's as if it was night time or something, I suppose, but it was supposed to be an outside area.
And now it really is.
Yeah, but it looks quite a lot better. So yeah, T-Rex in the original, that was probably the most memorable bit for a lot of people, I think.
Absolutely.
It was one of the early 3D games, and having that guy hove out the darkness at you at the draw distance was pretty frightening. And it was a lot of fun animating because it was pretty much an instant death situation if you were underneath his mouth. He just bit down and shook you about like a little terrier or something, shaking out. Little toy. Little legs would fly everywhere, and then he'd speed on the ground, and it was all part of the fun. That kind of was the basis for always making Lara's deaths as horribly cruel and painful looking as possible in the first game.
And now he's back, and he's a good deal bigger than he was. And that sort of goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, which was that people's memory of things is different than what it was. We made the T-Rex originally about half the size he is now. We ended up having to double him in size to sort of ramp up the feel and the intensity and make him scary and everything still. So now he's ginormous. He's a humongous T-Rex, way bigger than a real T-Rex would have actually been.
Right, but that's alright. And then obviously adding in the kind of concept that you use the environment against him instead of just shooting, because that was always the problem with the TR1 bosses, was that we didn't have time to really do anything special for the fights against the bigger monsters. It's still just essentially just putting as much lead in them as physically possible. Adding in the environmental stuff to this seemed like the most sensible way to big up that combat.
The Lost Valley is probably the most memorable part of Tomb Raider 1. And it's really funny because listening to people talk about it, a lot of people remember it being in a cave. And that was because you had really bad draw distance and it just sort of went out to black fog.
Well, pretty much we only had one fog color, which was black. So we couldn't actually, even though we wanted to have sort of an open top, we couldn't really do it. I think actually it's black at the top, so it's as if it was nighttime or something, I suppose, but it was supposed to be an outside area.
And now it really is.
Yeah, but it looks a lot better. the original, earlier on in the level, we had put in a switch over a trapdoor, and you pull the switch, and the trapdoor literally drops you away into some water. So you sort of like go, oh, that's so cruel. But then you're in water and it's totally fine. So just sort of to freak you out and give you a bit of a scare. And so what we did this time with this particular room, once you get to the final temple, you pull the switch, because everybody always runs over and pulls switches, and it drops you straight into combat.
Into the wolf den, as it were.
Yeah.
This was one of the rooms that I liked very much and wanted to keep. We had talked for a while about possibly not including this area. So we were sort of trying to decide what areas to pick from Tomb Raider 1, but it was one of my favorite areas because of the cruelty of it all.
Cruelty, yeah.
So I wanted to keep it, and now it's in there. And you too can get owned by wolves. It's good.
ここにオアスは神王クワロペック、三頭聖児の一人にしてシオンの3つのかけらを守護する者、博識なる預言者、アトランティスの聖なる支配者。
ご一緒したいが水着を忘れちまってね。
やっぱり現れたわね。
別行動もここまで。あとは俺の出番だよ。
ショットガンだけで私に勝てるとでも思ってるの？
わめくな小娘。お前なんざこれで十分なんだよ。
これはシオンのかけられすぎないわ。残りはどこなの？
さてと、どこだったかな。おい、脅しても無駄だぜ。かけらならピエールが見つけちまってる。
ピエール・デュボン？彼はどこ？
そいつは本当に知らん。
いいわ、信じてあげる。
くそ、なめられたもんだ。
ぐらいはね。あとはあなた次第。
ケチをつけるわけじゃないがね。どうしてあんたはララがブツを持ち帰ってこないと思うんだ？
ララはシオンを手放さないわ。あれに取りつかれてるから。父親もそうだった。あら、ムッシュ・デュポン。何か分かったのかしら？
朗報です、マダム。あなたの情報は正しかった。シオンのかけらを見つけました。この忘れられた場所の名は
聖フランシス聖堂。
ここが分かりましたね。
ナトラが契約を守るとは思えない。私だったら手を引くわ。
それは違う。ナトラと私は分かり合っています。私はブツを探し、彼女は報酬を弾む。ところがあなたはそれを横取りするつもりのようだ。あなたを信じるわけにはいかない。
私は直感を信じるの。
だからあなたはトップになれない。私はプロです、マドモアゼル。仕事をして報酬をもらうことしか考えない。
人生はお金じゃないわ、ピエール。
これは人生ではない仕事です。熱くなりすぎるとその違いに気づけない。
それでも私はシオンのかけらを手に入れた。そっちはどうなの？
なるほど。ではどちらがシオンをつかむのか勝負しましょう。
One of the interesting things about the sequence of Lara going to Natla's office was how she went up the elevator shaft, because when we were looking at the sequence, it seemed like it was going to be pretty boring in the original game. Her just breaking into an office and going up, rifling through Natla's drawers. So we came up with this idea of her using the counterweight to fly up the lift shaft, and it's kind of interesting because I remember that basically that actually got sort of, plagiarized slightly. No, not plagiarized. What's the word? It was homaged in the Matrix movie, which was pretty cool, actually. And then in remaking the office section, we decided to use that space to actually build a little bit more information on Natla, because we don't really get to see a lot of Natla. So we came up with this idea of, instead of Lara originally just read some kind of diary, she gets to look through Natla's
Video logs,
exactly, and we get a little bit of backstory both on Larson and Pierre, and it was an interesting way to sort of get more character going on without Lara having to sort of interact with them or change the sequences too much.
「ギリシャ人は天体に魅了されてたのね」。
one of the interesting things about the sequence of Lara going to Natla's office was how she went up the elevator shaft, because when we were looking at the sequence, it seemed like it was going to be pretty boring in the original game. Her just breaking into an office and going up, rifling through Natla's drawers. So we came up with this idea of her using the counterweight to fly up the lift shaft, and it's kind of interesting because I remember that basically that actually got sort of, plagiarized a slight way. No, not plagiarized. One of the interesting things about the sequence of Lara going to Natla's office was how she went up the elevator shaft, because when we were looking at the sequence, it was... So originally, old Pierre, you just fight him here. He just runs out and starts gunning you down, basically. But we wanted to, first of all, make a character that was a little bit more interesting than just to shoot first and ask questions later. But we also wanted to sort of keep one of the aspects of Pierre that made him really interesting in the first game, or I really liked about him anyway, which is that pretty much you had to fight him about 3 or 4 times throughout the level, and you'd shoot him loads and loads of times, and then he'd just suddenly decide, that's it, I'm running away, and he'd just... As soon as he went out of line of sight, he'd just vaporize, basically.
Which was a little cheap.
So when we came to doing the remake, I was going, that's great! I love the way that he just, goes behind a pillar and vanishes, and everyone's going, no, it's rubbish, it's ridiculous, where does he go? So we actually decided to play on that in the cutscene and have him sort of be sort of this ninja guy who could be anywhere behind any pillar, potentially, and basically work that into the cutscene.
St. Francis Folly is I would say probably the second most recognizable area from Tomb Raider. St. Francis Folly is I would say probably the second most recognizable area from Tomb Raider 1, other than the T-Rex Valley. I think a lot of people really remember that sort of big vertical room and the climbing up the broken thing in the middle. So, I mean, we really wanted to sort of keep that feel when we redid it, and then just sort of make it more involved and sort of more challenging to the player this time. But essentially, it's pretty much unchanged. We even sort of went back and duplicated the textures from the original for like the floor panels in the middle, because they're sort of so recognizable.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting sort of goal with that area when we were, because it's quite.
St. Francis Folly is I would say probably the second most recognizable area from Tomb Raider 1, other than the T-Rex Valley. I think a lot of people really remember that sort of big vertical room and the climbing up the broken thing in the middle. So, I mean, we really wanted to sort of keep that feel when we redid it, and then just sort of make it more involved and sort of more challenging to the player this time. But essentially, it's pretty much unchanged. We even sort of went back and duplicated the textures from the original for like the floor panels in the middle, because they're sort of so recognizable.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting sort of goal with that area when we were, because it's quite common that game designers, even when they have a 3D vertical sort of space that they can play with, they tend to sort of end up just making long flat things anyway. So that particular area from the original game was just sort of, let's go as vertical as we possibly can and see what we can do with it. And it was great with Lara being so sort of easy to kill, because it was such a frightening space to move through. And you know, as usual with Anniversary, everything is double the size now, so it's even more frightening looking. in the original, the idea of the two sections of the room was the first one was obviously just essentially sort of it was kind of really just basically a random death machine. So you had this this checkered pattern on the floor, and you're supposed to sort of be able to, I think, tell where the next lightning bolt was supposed to come and then try and avoid that area. But in reality, you just had to run across as fast as you possibly could in case you get fried.
This is quality design. Random death.
Random death machine. Do you realise how much time we had? Anyway, so after the random death machine, the concept of the next room actually was, I like the idea of having to put yourself into the most dangerous position you possibly get, right? Where
under the hammer.
You have to physically stand under the hammer and then wait for it kind of to crank back and then drop, and you have to just run off at the last second. And that was particularly evil in the first one because Lara moved so slowly. She took so long to react to anything. So you it really made for the situation where you'd sort of stand on the pressure plate and then you kind of run off and go, oh, and it didn't trigger, and you go, oh, it's a little bit too much of a chicken that time, and you'd run back and go, woo, run off. Well, at least that's what I used to do anyway.
this wasn't even a room in the first game. It was a hallway with a ball at the top.
We didn't even have time to actually build Atlas. The whole idea was that there'd be this statue with, obviously the chap with the big rolling ball, which was one of the small number of actual generic tools we could use to make our puzzles, and have it sitting on his back and textured like the world. We just didn't have time to do any of that, so we just had the ball at the top of a ramp. That left the rest of it to people's imaginations.
That's right. So now we've actually been able to build Atlas.
Woo!
Yeah, so that's good. And there he is, and he rolls the ball down, essentially. The theme is the same. We just sort of added the added difficulty of having a pit at the end. In the original, you just sort of hid behind a ledge and let the ball roll over you, didn't you?
No, that was the same. It was basically you had to drop down into the pit.
Yeah.
Let the ball roll over the top of you because it fly over the top.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So you made it a bit more complicated.
It's a tad bit more complicated, but thematically identical. Except we actually have a statue.
Yes. All right, Neptune.
Neptune. Yeah. So originally the Neptune room was essentially just a hole in the floor with a little pool of water, wasn't it?
How dare you? No, like the goal with the Neptune area was to actually give people a sense of real claustrophobia underwater. So it was an extremely long shaft, and the moment you stepped into it, it sucked you all the way down to the bottom. And I wanted to get this feeling of like that terror of being, deep underwater and knowing that you can hardly swim back. So because the draw distance on the original Tomb Raider, basically it faded to black after not very far. The cool thing about the Neptune room was that you get sucked down this hole so far that it's black above you. You can't even see the surface anymore. And it was that horror of being pulled down to your doom that I was trying to get with the Neptune room. And then basically you have to just find a switch and turn off the current and swim up just in the nick of time. But what did you guys do? Looks pretty crazy.
Yeah, so we took that original area where you get sucked down, and then we built an entire new room off the side of that. So instead of just pulling the switch and swimming back up, now you pull the switch and you go into an entirely new room themed around Neptune and water. Though, you know what I just realized? We renamed this room.
What did you rename it to?
It's Poseidon.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, see, this goes back to originally Toby not knowing who the Greek and the Roman gods were.
Oh, well, it's not as bad a mistake as Thor, though, is it?
It's true. So while the original room was Neptune, this is now the Poseidon room. So that it's the same god, just now it's appropriate to Greece.
Yeah.
So that works out fictionally better. But the room's still sort of all water-centric. And you just sort of swim around and do stuff and get the thing and then swim back up the hole.
No being sucked down to your doom.
Well, you still got to swim back up. If there's no doom, Toby doesn't like it.
Damocles' room was basically, I mean, obviously his story is about having a sword sitting over his head. So the plan with the room was basically that you walk in and you see this like forest of swords hanging from the ceiling, and you think that's bad news. And then you pick your way through the room and actually nothing happens to you. But, you know, there's a prize at the end of the room and you just know what's going to happen when you take it. So it's kind of really building that expectation of when the swords come flying towards you like magic missiles.
That's right. We just sort of took that concept and ramped it up, and now we've got swords in the walls and swords in the floor. It's swordtastic.
It dilutes a little bit the whole sword from the ceiling, though, which is the legend.
True.
Damocles' room was basically, I mean, obviously his story is about having a sword sitting over his head. So the plan with the room was basically that you walk in and you see this like forest of swords hanging from the ceiling, and you think that's bad news. And then you pick your way through the room and actually nothing happens to you. But, you know, there's a prize at the end of the room and you just know what's going to happen when you take it. So it's kind of really building that expectation of when the swords come flying towards you like magic missiles.
That's right. We just sort of took that concept and ramped it up, and now we've got swords in the walls and swords in the floor. It's swordtastic.
It dilutes a little bit the whole sword from the ceiling, though, which is the legend.
True.
In the first one, it was all you had to do essentially was, I think you had to pick up a couple of keys down in
And then
the,
go around the top, right?
And then, yeah, there was like a specific route around the outside. And obviously, Pierre showed up again in the first one and did his disappearing behind pillars trick, which was really pretty cool. Yeah, it was a very simple area. Basically, just unlock a couple of keys and then go up to the king's viewing or the emperor's viewing area, Caesar, I suppose, which was full of monkeys, and then get out of there into the next area.
They're still monkeys. They're gorillas. They throw stuff now.
So what did you do? Go on, tell us all about how you went about expanding it.
Yeah, so the original, we sort of kept the idea the same. We just wanted to sort of, obviously Laura's more nimble now, so we had to sort of increase the sort of level of detail in her interactions with the environment. So we just sort of made the environments more complex. We've got her traversing over various ruins and bits of broken column and pieces of the ceiling that have fallen out. So essentially it's the same. It's just sort of updated to match sort of the abilities of Lara. The Colosseum this time is round.
Yeah, I see that. It's a really major improvement. We didn't have any angles apart from the right angles, obviously, first time round. So it does look quite a lot more like the Colosseum. Yeah.
Yeah, we tried.
Impressive. And it's particularly impressive when you think that, again, Colosseum isn't Greek, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not Greek, but we just sort of fudged it.
Yeah.
It's Toby's fault because he put it in the first game.
Yeah.
We had to put it in this one.
But it was Romany Greeky. I wasn't too bothered. But it's a cool idea, I thought, to be able to, because really, kind of the concept of Tomb Raider 1 was just this idea that when I go to these sort of places, Colosseum or Stonehenge or any of these sort of ancient ruins, I personally have a terribly strange urge to climb all over them, see where I can get to. And I thought, hey, if I want to do that, then maybe other people do. So getting the Colosseum in there seemed like a cool idea, because it's sort of exploring around on the inside, and we tried to create the rooms, obviously, that have been recreated here again, which are things like the gladiator areas and the places, the animal pits, and just tried to let people sort of string together the story of how the area would have actually worked, centuries before in their own heads.
That's right. This game, like most games, is fantasy fulfillment, right? So it's all about exploring the ruins that you couldn't really explore if you went to Rome and went to the Colosseum.
Yeah, there's too many people telling you, hey, get off that ancient bit of rock there, you crazy monkey man.
That's right. You're going to break it.